You've probably already heard how Ukraine conducted a successful counteroffensive and regained control of a huge piece of territory with several hundred settlements. On the liberated territory, the Ukrainian military received many trophies. Many Russian tanks, self-propelled howitzers and artillery, many armed vehicles and ARC special equipment were found. In addition, the Russians left a lot of ammunition for various guns at their posts. Entire warehouses with boxes full of ammunition were found. Ukrainians even joked that Russia had become the largest supplier of military equipment to Ukraine. According to preliminary estimates, Ukraine received from Russia trophies worth about $700 million. That's more than 300 pieces of various military equipment and thousands of tons of ammunition. But why are the Russians abandoning their equipment and ammunition? What happened to the Russian army and why did they flee?
But Russian tanks strewn and hardware across the place. It's a devastating morale hit for the Russians.
The fact is that the Ukrainian army was very well prepared and was able to launch a very strong concentrated strike against Russian positions. The Ukrainian Armed Forces destroyed the entire Russian air defense in just a few hours and destroyed all communications and command posts. The Russian military was left without communications and control. The commanders did not know what was happening at the front. Then, the Ukrainian army launched massive strikes against the enemy's first line of defense, and they immediately began to flee. Panic broke out in the ranks of the Russian army. Captured Russians later said they were left without communication and control and stopped understanding what was going on. The Russians expected the Ukrainian army to storm the cities, but the Ukrainians bypassed the cities and cut off roads and communications. As a result, towns and villages were encircled and the Russians fled, abandoning everything. The Russian command tried to save the situation. They called for air support, but they lost several planes. We have footage of a downed Russian Su-34 fighter jet that went down in the woods. Another plane went down in a field. And some Russian planes could not even take off and immediately fell down, like in this video. Also, the Russians tried to use the TOS Solntsepek flamethrower system against Ukrainian soldiers, but Ukrainian intelligence tracked it down with a drone and destroyed it. Here it is, now lying on the ground. Trying to contain the Ukrainians' military onslaught, the Russians sent rapid reaction groups into battle, but they were destroyed on their approach by HIMARS systems. We have video footage of this. By the way, MLRS-270 systems and the HIMARS themselves were caught on camera several times in this operation. Ukraine uses them very successfully. High-precision artillery gives the Ukrainians a significant advantage in the speed of advance, as they do not waste time on artillery duels. One target, one shot, and the Russians are finished. The operation was lightning fast. In just 2 days, the Ukrainian army deepened 50 kilometers forward and took the town of Kupiansk. This was an important and strategic city for Russian logistics on this section of the front. The railroads used by the Russians to supply ammunition and reserves passed through here. And on day 5, almost the entire Kharkov region had already been liberated by the Ukrainian military. It took the Russians 120 days just to seize the territory, which the Ukrainian army had liberated in 5 days. The reputation of the Russian army was irreparably damaged, but the most interesting thing turned out to be ahead. You don't have to be a big military expert to understand that leaving military equipment to the enemy is inadmissible. After all this military equipment will now be directed against the Russian army. In fact, Russia has strengthened the Ukrainian army at its own expense. We have exclusive photos and videos of all this abandoned Russian equipment and ammunition. Now the Ukrainians will shoot Russian shells at the Russians. The military command of the Ukrainian army will be able to create several new army brigades using Russian tanks and artillery. Already during this offensive, Ukrainians have successfully used abandoned Russian tanks in combat with the Russians. In this video, we see a Ukrainian soldier painting over the Russian markings and drawing a Ukrainian cross. Ukraine managed to make the Russian army panic. Therefore, Russian soldiers fled en masse. Running away, the Russians left behind heavy armored vehicles as they drive slowly. They fled mostly in trucks or light armored infantry vehicles, and many on foot. We see plenty of evidence of this. The Ukrainians destroyed the bridge over the Oskol River to prevent the Russians from escaping. Then they tried to cross the river, but they failed. They abandoned their transport and swam across the river. Obviously, the Russian military did not want to fight, and their morale was very low. In the command post left behind, the Ukrainians found a whole bunch of resignation reports written by Russian soldiers. All of this is confirmed by the captives. Russians don't want to fight because they don't see the point in this war anymore. They do not understand why they have to die, but they are forced to. We have a video of a group of Russian soldiers complaining to their commanders that they have nothing to fight with, no helmets and no body armor. They refuse to go to the front, but they are forced to. One Ukrainian soldier said an interesting phrase: "The Russians are fighting for land. We are fighting for freedom." Note how differently the Ukrainian and Russian military look. The Ukrainian fighter is equipped with everything he needs and looks like a hero from a movie, while the Russians look like bums. Putin and his generals are completely unconcerned about their soldiers. The biggest problem the Russian troops have is their boots. That is why they often take boots from killed Ukrainian soldiers or whatever they can find, such as dress shoes. The Ukrainians made a blitzkrieg in one of the occupied regions, but the Russians were disorganized and could not offer proper resistance. Such tactics were very profitable for Ukraine and paid off handsomely. Ukraine got a lot of weapons and did a lot of damage to the reputation of the Russian army. The morale of the Russians is now even more damaged. Retired U.S. General Ben Hodges praised the successful Ukrainian attack.
I may have been a little bit too conservative in that. I mean, this is going faster than I would have anticipated.
Meanwhile, in Russia, a wave of indignation at the high command swept through, and television began to talk about the need for general mobilization. But Putin refuses to mobilize. His spokesman stated that Putin is not considering mobilization. There is a dissonance between Putin and his people. For years, propaganda has indoctrinated the people that the Russian army is invincible and the strongest in the world. And here they see how this army is not even able to cope with Ukraine, which they do not even consider a full-fledged country. Let me just remind you that so far Putin has not achieved any of his stated goals and risks a very serious internal political crisis that threatens him with the loss of power. A Ukrainian victory in the war is necessary to stabilize the world's security system, because if Putin wins and non-Russia is not held accountable for all its crimes, it could lead a global triumph of autocracy. Russia, China, Iran, and the other dictators of the world could unite and create an unprecedented threat to world democracy. So support Ukraine in its struggle for democracy and for freedom.